Welcome to my channel. This is Divested Diamonds. You have arrived. So this video is probably going to upset a few people, hence the disclaimer at the beginning of it. I've been wanting to talk about this issue for a while. I've had this video in my archives for a few years now, and since this channel promotes healing and wellness, especially as far as trauma is concerned, I feel there's no time like the present to talk about this. Most of us know Viola Davis from How to Get Away with Murder, The Help, The Unforgivable, which is on Netflix, etc. As you can see, she is a beautiful woman. She's educated, accomplished, and she's just seemingly a wonderful person. Now, a few years ago, she did an interview with Access Hollywood after being honored for her work with Stewart House, the Rape Foundation. Let's listen to this interview and hear what she had to say.
What does this honor mean to you?
You know, it's not my style to talk about honors. So what it means to me, though, is it means that obviously my voice has made a difference.
How to Get Away with Murder star Viola Davis was honored for her work with the Stewart House at the Rape Foundation's annual brunch. The organization is close to her heart because her sister was sexually assaulted at the age of 8. I sat down with Viola, who spoke candidly about this very traumatic episode in her family's history.
I know me and my life, my mother, sisters, so many people who have been victims of sexual violence in any way. The big thing is silence.
Yeah.
And you're silent because you don't feel that your voice means anything, that anyone is going to listen. You're devalued. And I think perpetrators really rely on that.
And that happened with your sister, right, at the age of 8?
At the age of 8.
She was raped?
She was sexually assaulted at a corner store at 8 years old in the middle of the day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And she was on her roller skates. And the response was, well, he does that to all the little girls. That I think that it's become a knee-jerk response in our culture. And what people don't understand is surviving sexual abuse is just that. That what happens afterwards is when you become violated even once again, that even though for the perpetrator, it's over as far as they're concerned, for the victim, it's not over. They have to relive it on a day-to-day basis.
Your sister is a little younger than you, so when she came home and you heard the story of what had happened to her, what was your mother's reaction? What was the reaction
Devastation.
at home?
Devastation, and then, like always, nothing. I mean, yeah, you try to bring the perpetrator to justice, and this man I think he had to pay a fine, which I don't know, was $10 a month.
A fine?
That was it. What do you do afterwards? You know, it's a famous quote from a Shakespeare play after a character is raped. The famous quote is, "To whom should I complain?" And I find that that's very apropos in this situation. To whom should I complain? Who's going to hear me? Who is going to validate me and validate what happened to me and the depth to my hurt and my pain?
What happened to her after that?
Well, what happened to her after that is just a lot of things. I mean, everything from drugs to all of that.
Do you know where she is now? And
yeah, I know where she is now. And beautiful human being too. Beautiful spirit, beautiful human being. And I always wonder what her day-to-day train of thought is like, though. I always say that I wish she had a Stewart House. I wish she had someone who was there, right there at that moment, to tell her she wasn't dirty, to tell her what she did wasn't her fault. Only rapists cause rape. She does not cause rape. She didn't do anything wrong. And this rape treatment center, Stewart House, is, you know, I always say, because I'm a believer, is these are buildings and institutions built by God. People who really care. People who really feel like their healing is the key.
You know, as I was listening to her relay the story, I could feel and hear the pain. Sexual abuse and the trauma it carries can either make you or break you. What's really sad is how the perpetrator is somehow just allowed to move on and live their life while the victim is left to pick up the pieces. In my opinion, there isn't punishment harsh enough for pedophiles and other rapists. Let's examine what she said in regards to family or community response. She mentioned silence being a major issue as to why perpetrators rely on that to abuse more children. Pedophiles are smart. They're also very strategic in how they move. Obviously, when they are dealing with children, it's very easy to threaten and manipulate these kids because they don't know any better. This is also part of the reason why you will hear stories about kids being abused for years right under their parents' noses without them knowing anything about it. It's the secrecy between the perp and the victim. Some of these perps will say to a child, "You can't tell anyone about this. This is our little secret. If you think of telling anyone about this, I will tell them that you're lying and that it was all your fault." Now, as stupid or as mundane as that may sound, children will hold on to that because they do not know any better. You see, in most cases, a lot of these predators are known to these kids. These are adults in a position of trust. The chances are you have met these people before. You've probably had them in your home. You see them on a regular basis and probably say hello to them. Most pedophiles aren't strangers. That is why they have all the time in the world to groom your children. Most parents will focus on telling their kids about stranger danger, which is good. However, parents should also get into the habit of teaching their children what I call familiar danger. These are adults who are familiar to you and your kids. Adults who act strangely around minors. Now, bear in mind, all adults who abuse children do not act strangely around children. Some of these people are wolves in sheep's clothing. Even the so-called Black community always talks about that. That weird cousin, uncle, who behaves inappropriately at family gatherings. And the funny thing about that is that no one seems to reprimand these people. And I'm not saying that only men abuse kids. Some women do it too. However, men are more likely to do it than women. But anyway, the silence from the victims, as well as the silence from the families, if they know what's going on, is what deepens the trauma. That is why it's very important to have open dialogue. You need to have open lines of communication with your children so they are able to talk to you when they see something's amiss. She also mentioned being devalued as a victim. That goes without saying, especially in the so-called community, right? We have seen this play out time and time again, where the predator is almost high-fived for a job well done, while the victim is shamed, blamed, bullied, disbelieved, to the point where some people, both men and women, will call these young girls fast. It's absolutely disgusting and it's shameful. These are children. These people will go so hard for these men that they will use phrases like, "Oh, well, she was asking for it." Really? We saw this with R. Kelly, who had been grooming children, okay, doing high school drive-bys to pick up these children, abusing them and discarding them like last week's pizza. People in the so-called community have become desensitized to these issues and have made this the norm. That is why it's not shocking anymore, not that it ever was, to see underage teenage girls pregnant by crusty old men who have no business looking in the direction of these children. And like she said, the community response was, well, he does that to all the girls. Why is someone like that still walking around? That's what I want to know. Why would someone like that still be breathing? That's what I want to know. She was 8 years old, okay? She deserved a happy childhood filled with dreams and aspirations. She became so broken that the life that she could have had became a distant memory. How is that okay? And if you've noticed, everything about these situations is centered around how these men would be perceived should the truth be revealed. Why should anyone care? There's always the case of how you shouldn't call the cops because you would be considered a traitor to your own people. What are you supposed to do when the same community that's supposed to rally around you in times of need actually becomes the disease that you should be healing yourself from? Talk to your girls. Talk to your children about what inappropriate looks like. Prevention is better than trauma, because trauma is a life sentence whose end is predicated upon your exit from this earth. Before I conclude this video, I'm going to put pictures on the screen of women, familiar faces, who were unprotected because their family and the rest of the community turned a blind eye. This is not an insensitive ploy to out these women. Their stories are already out there because they spoke up and told the world about the carelessness of being born female in this so-called community. According to the American Psychological Association, for every Black woman who reports rape, at least 15, that's 1-5, Black women do not report. 1 in 4 Black girls will be sexually abused before the age of 18. 1 in 5 Black women are survivors of rape. 35% of Black women experienced some form of contact sexual violence during their lifetime. 40 to 60% of Black women report being subjected to coercive sexual contact by age 18. 17% of Black women experienced sexual violence other than rape by an intimate partner during their lifetime. Now, let's talk about why certain women take years to to even talk about or report these cases. Everyone deals with trauma in different ways. The mind processes trauma in various ways, and sometimes that means storing that devastation until such a time you are forced to come to terms with it. Some women will talk about it right away. For others, the brain will form different personalities in order to cope with that trauma. Others will resort to cutting, as a form of relief. Some will resort to eating disorders such as bulimia and anorexia. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who has these afflictions has been sexually molested. These, however, are common traits that are found in people who've been through this kind of devastation. So please, talk to your girls. Talk to your children. Show them love and show them support. Even if you're too late, remind them that they are not alone and they are not to blame for what happened to them. I will end this video here, but please let me know what you think. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. This is Divested Diamonds, and I'll see you next time. Bye, diamonds.